A lot of clients are posting great content, but either they're not taking a close look at SEO, or they're posting not such great content, but like they're over optimizing, right? Like there's two big ways you can go.
Hey, and thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Content Briefly. Today, we're talking with Tom Shapiro and Alexis Trammel from Stratabeat. Stratabeat is an organic growth agency. They also happen to be Superpath's newest partner. They've been wonderful to work with. You'll see some of their ads in our newsletter, and I would encourage folks to go check out some of the services that they offer. Most of this conversation is about a report that they recently published about SEO performance among B2B companies from January 2023 to January 2024. We talk all about the methodology and some of the findings. Pretty interesting though. I mean, basically what this reveals is the way that the highest performing B2B SaaS sites acquire organic traffic. And so we walk through what those tactics are, some best practices. We talk through the difference between pursuing those tactics or not, and how you might be able to forecast traffic based on doing them, etc. So anyways, I would encourage you to go check out the report. It's in the show notes if you want to download it. Definitely data is often best visualized. Talking through charts is sometimes not as clear as just looking at it. So definitely go download it and check it out. It's free, of course. Really appreciate Tom and Alexis coming on. It was great to chat with them. As always, I enjoyed this conversation and I hope you do too. Hey everybody. Jimmy from Superpath here today with another episode of Content Briefly. Very happy to have two folks from the Stratabeat team, Tom Shapiro, founder and CEO, and Alexis Trammel, Chief Growth Officer. First, thank you both so much for being here. I think this is actually the first podcast we've done in almost 60 episodes with two guests. So better late than never. Maybe first, would you mind each introducing yourself? Tell us a bit about who you are, some of the work you've been up to, and then your role at Stratabeat.
Sure. Happy to. So Alexis Trammel here. I've been with Stratabeat for almost 6 years now. We work with B2B tech and SaaS companies. We've worked with the whole full gambit. We're an organic growth agency, so our services include SEO, content marketing, conversion rate optimization. We love blogging. We love behavioral science, neuroscience, behavioral analytics. And something that's really unique about us too is that we also align ICP fit with the content that we create through IP detection software. So to ensure that our clients are attracting the correct people to their content and converting the companies that they're looking for in their B2B sector, we will identify which logos and people are on their website, what are they digesting, and where are they converting?
Okay, I have follow-up questions for you about that for sure.
Okay, right.
but maybe first, Tom, will you please intro yourself too?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tom Shapiro. I'm the founder and CEO of Stratabeat. So I've been in the digital space forever. The first website that I developed was in 1994. So several years before Google even existed.
That's awesome.
I've seen a lot of evolution through the years, and it's been so much fun going through the whole process. Essentially, Alexis has explained everything that Stratabeat is and what we're about and who we serve and all of that good stuff. I will say that just personally, I have also written two books. One called Rethink Your Marketing, another called Rethink Lead Generation. They're both available in Amazon. And it's all about just, not just taking a cookie cutter approach, not just copying the competition, not just doing what you've done in the past, but really having a backbone, right? And making bold moves that really unleash growth. I have over 70 different case studies in the two books. And in literally every single case, the company was bold in their action. They pushed their chips into the middle of the table and they took bold action. And so, that's what we're all about with our clients as well, is helping them to move out of their comfort zone, try new things, be innovative, but in a very meaningful, impactful way that's going to influence business results. So not just vanity metrics, but business results.
Yeah, I love that. No better time for companies to be thinking about bold moves than right now, just with all the kind of chaos and disruption that's gone on for the past year or so. Tom, could you give us the origin story of Stratabeat? You started the business, I think 12 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that.
Yeah, 13 years ago. Yeah, and I started it in my dining room with a laptop and a cell phone, and that was it.
Nice.
But before that, I was at a company called iProspect. I was the 85th employee, and on the second day of my job, I was pulled into a conference room with several other people at the company by the CEO, and he shut the door and he locked it. And he said, we have to fix this problem. Essentially, that agency was not able to make any sales at that time. There were 85 people at the company. It was just one location, and it was an SEO and PPC agency at the time, and really just couldn't beat the main competitor in the market at that time. And so I started asking a lot of questions, started introducing a lot of new ideas, and we collectively as a team launched a lot of new initiatives. We completely changed the way that we did some of our marketing. We changed the way that we did sales. For example, we went from these massive trade shows where you're spending like $50,000 a shot to introducing local road shows. The local road show actually turned out to be our number one leads driver. After that, we went from 85 people, Jimmy, from 85 to over 700 people in 5 years.
Wow.
5 years. So I experienced that. And then because iProspect really only focused on SEO and PPC at the time, and I was having conversations with Fortune 500 CMOs and VPs of marketing that was much broader in nature. We would talk about their website. We would talk about their content. We would talk about the design of their website, right? It would be much more than just SEO and just PPC, right? And that I got the itch to solve bigger problems. And so that's why I decided it was time to move away from iProspect. I love the company, love the people, brilliant people, wonderful people, but I just decided it was time to move on and start something fresh where we could be more impactful and not just limited to SEO and PPC solutions. But if we see a CRO problem, go ahead and fix it. If we see a web design problem, go ahead and fix it. So just having more tools in the toolbox.
Yeah. That's really cool. I imagine it's been a pretty fascinating journey from 2011 or so to now. Are there like a couple of things you could point out over that 13-year time span that have either changed dramatically or are exactly the same as when you started Stratabeat?
Yeah. So one thing that dramatically changed for us internally was when I started at my dining room table, I basically was open to doing business with any type of company, whether it was B2B or B2C. Along the journey, we decided to go exclusively B2B. And really today, it's evolved where we're B2B for tech and SaaS. Like that is our audience. And by technology, we mean it could be medical technology. It could be sensoring technology. It could be technology for factories, right? It could be green technology. And like Alexis mentioned, and like I'm mentioning now, any type of B2B SaaS as well. And so it is the full spectrum of technology solutions. Whereas again, the contrast with the initial days was, I was just open for business with any type of company. So that internally, that's one of the biggest changes. Another change was when I started, we were both organic and paid growth solutions. Now, today, we are strictly 100% organic growth solutions. So like Alexis mentioned, right? SEO, CRO, content strategy, content development, web design, all of these things where we have to earn the click. We have to earn every click, right? We look at paid media as really renting an audience and organic growth as earning, right? That audience. And then over time, your results can compound over time. Whereas with, paid media, as soon as you stop spending, it literally goes to zero. And so, yeah, just some of the changes internally, I think that those two were two of the biggest. And then in the market, it's been interesting to see that there is so much more sophistication today in the market with brands in terms of, especially with content strategy and content marketing, and to a certain extent, to a certain extent with SEO. It's very, very different than it was 13 years ago.
Absolutely. And we're gonna talk about some of those changes in a second, because you all have recently run this survey and put together a report on SEO performance, and I have a bunch of questions about that. But Alexis, I wanted to ask you too. You mentioned you've been there for 6 years. Agencies are notorious for employee turnover, and 6 years is a good long run. What's different about Stratabeat? And tell us a little bit about how your role has changed over those 6 years too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So starting at Stratabeat, I was, mainly an account director. So I was a main point of contact with a lot of our clients. And now I get to be head of strategy for our clients. So one, that's a lot more fun for me. I think that, and then, over the years, from account director, I started taking over operations, and now I'm taking over marketing. And I think that transition has been really interesting, and just fun. And I mean, I don't want to say this in front of Tom, of course, because why would I don't want to say this in front of Tom, but the truth is that he's literally the best CEO out there. He's the best boss I've ever had. So it's hard to leave a place when you know that your autonomy is respected, and your team is wants to win as much as you want to win, and we just have that genuine care for our clients, where we don't chase every dollar, right? We want to work with people that we really feel like we can make a big impact for, which is why we have such great case studies on our website. So I think that just being able to win in those areas is just so exciting and just makes you want to stay.
Yeah. That's awesome. Those are some feel-good vibes. I love that. Okay, let's dive into this report. So Stratabeat has recently published a report, B2B SaaS SEO performance report. You looked at 250 websites and you tracked their SEO performance over 12 months. Maybe first, why did you do this? And I'll give some context. So we at Superpath did a state of content report back in the fall, and I wanted to do it because I just felt like I'm hearing so many stories and I don't know what to make of anything right now.
Yeah.
It's like everyone's using AI generated content, or, SEO budgets are decreasing, or, teams are shrinking and all these things. And we're like, we need to get some data to back this stuff up, which was fascinating. And I'm curious if this is, you're trying to do a similar thing where you're sort of backing up some of the anecdotes you hear from customers and prospects, or is this an annual thing that you put out every year, kind of regardless of what else is happening in the greater marketing world?
Yeah. So, the reason why we did it was because, we were hearing different things. We were reading different things online. We're also seeing a lot of generic advice online that, was not specific to B2B technology, right? But B2B SaaS and technology companies, it's a very specific niche. And we wanted to confirm with actual evidence, with actual data, what's working and what's not working in Google today. Also, this is in parallel with all the many, many changes that Google is introducing, right? And so no one knows what's going on right now. No one has a definitive answer for everything in terms of, what it's going to take to succeed this year in Google. So we just wanted it to be data-based. And this is something that we just started this year, but we are already deep into the next round of analysis. So in other words, this is going to be a rolling, continuous type of study. It's not just a one and done where we're going to be feeding you data that's a year old a year from now, right? Like every quarter, we are going to be rolling out new data, updated, fresh stats, so that, again, everything is evidence-based. So we can see, all right, so AI overviews just came out this past week. We can see, okay, what is the impact of that in the next study, right?
Yeah, that's really cool. This is kind of a side note. I think the AI overviews are kind of good. I like them. I mean, I feel like for all the sort of fear around like, how is AI going to disrupt search? I know this is like the first tiniest little iteration, but I think the AI overviews are good. And, your links to the citations are still there. I don't know. It has me feeling a little bit more optimistic.
Yeah, so we actually just went over this with one of our clients this morning, and we were showing them where they were the featured uh, content in the
Yeah.
AI overview. And so there are ways that you can win there, but also everyone just needs to realize it's all about providing massive, overwhelming value to your readers.
Yeah.
And the more that you're doing that, the more that you're probably moving into the middle of the funnel, right? So you're not so much at the tippy top of the funnel where AI overviews is going to probably dominate. But the middle of the funnel is where you can talk about your experiences, your expertise. It can be more product-led content. It can be more audience-segmented content. It can be more sophisticated content, more for experts, right? And so we are leaning more and more into the MoFu and the BoFu type of content, with the understanding that, yes, over the long term, probably Google and AI overviews, or whatever they call it next year, is probably going to start eating a percentage of the market share there.
Yeah. Got it. That makes sense. Could you talk a little bit about the methodology of the survey, just so folks understand where the data comes from and what type of sites it's coming from?
Yeah. So we selected 250 B2B SaaS websites. So it's all B2B, it's all SaaS, right? And originally we selected 350, but we did whittle that down to 250. The methodology that we used was we were looking at websites that had a sufficient sample size of data. So in other words, if you were a startup last year, you didn't make the cut because we just didn't have enough data to go with. Or let's say that you weren't even a startup, but maybe you've been around a while, but you just haven't gained a lot of organic traction. Then we didn't include that website in the study. On the other side of the spectrum, we excluded any website that had more than 10 million organic unique visits in a month, because we originally had included those websites, but it was skewing all the data. It is so different when you look at the websites that have up to, but not over 10 million a month, compared to those that are well over 10 million a month. And so we just thought that it was a more accurate description of, say, 95% of the market if we just limit it to those websites.
Got it. That makes sense. So like the data in here is these are realistic goals that your average B2B SaaS company could set, right? Like they could use this data to think about like, oh, well, if we increase our content output by X, we could reasonably expect organic traffic would increase by Y type thing.
Exactly. And what we looked at was Google top 10 rankings, organic traffic, referring domains, backlinks, things like that.
Cool. Let's dive into some of the data. There's some really interesting stuff in here. So basically what you did is you looked at the various ways that companies try to capture organic traffic. So content creation, creating free tools, doing original research, white papers, et cetera. And then kind of compared and contrasted the results based on kind of how much they do, how much of that thing that they do, do traffic increase, decrease, et cetera. You should download the report. It's free. And we'll have a link to make sure that people can go do it, because sometimes data is obviously best visualized rather than talked about. The first thing that stood out to me is that the first section about increasing the cadence of new content and the correlation there with increased traffic. Interestingly, I was just the other day reading this sort of insane LinkedIn thread where people were having this debate about quality versus quantity. And I kind of felt like, I feel like we've been doing this for like as long as I've worked in marketing. Interestingly, there was some very strong arguments for quantity, but not a lot of data to back it up. Now, like this data does back it up. And I will just, before asking you guys to provide some additional context, say that, the kind of low cadence versus high cadence that you compared was 1 to 4 blog posts a month versus 5 to 8. So it's not like an insane amount. It's not 100 blog posts a month.
Right.
Although I'm wondering if there were a few in there that, fell far outside that 5 to 8 range, which seemed to be a sweet spot for increasing organic traffic.
For sure. Yeah, we did see some that do fall outside of that range. And those are the ones that we would consider they're dominating. But there's like this point of equilibrium, right? In terms of like effort versus return. And that's something we really wanted to dive deep into. You want to tell us about those details, Tom?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. So the top performers out of the entire 250 websites that we looked at actually were blogging 11 times a month, right? So the top 10% were blogging more than 8 times. They were blogging on average 11 times, but some were blogging 15 times a month. We had one website where they were blogging 22 times a month, and they experienced a 182.2% increase in organic traffic, monthly organic traffic year over year. And so if we do compare on average those websites that are only blogging 1 to 4 times a month versus 5 to 8 times a month, there's a massive difference. But we're not saying to limit it to 5 to 8 times a month. We're saying that's the minimum.
Yeah.
We're saying if you want to maximize your results, really you should be starting at 5 to 8 times a month. And what we found was in terms of Google top 10 rankings, those who were blogging 5 to 8 times a month increased their Google top 10 keywords by close to 48%. Those who were blogging only 1 to 4 times a month, it was under 11%. If we talk about traffic, it's even more drastic of a difference. So those who were blogging 5 to 8 times a month increased their organic monthly traffic by 103.3%. And those who were blogging only 1 to 4 times a month, it was nearly 12%. And so you're talking about an 8.5 times differential. And so if you're already blogging, let's say a few times a month, let's say, 2 or 3 times a month, it's low hanging fruit just to increase the cadence, right? You already have the infrastructure in place. You have the process in place. You have the technology in place. You're already doing it. All you need to do is increase the frequency. So we feel like that is a fantastic place to start. If you are, let's say, a B2B technology company and you're looking at what's a quick win, what's something that we can do today that's going to have an earlier, faster impact? Well, right there, if you're already blogging, but you're only blogging up to 4 times a month, just increase the cadence, just increase the frequency, double it to 8 times a month, and you could increase your impact. You can increase your organic traffic by 8.5 times. I mean, that's a massive ROI on the slightly incremental effort, right? And then again, if we go back to the top performers, don't just limit yourself to that. As soon as you're ready to publish more, just know that the top performers in the study, the top 10%, on average, were blogging 11 times a month.
Okay, this might not be an easy question to ask, but it sounds simpler than I think it really is. Okay, so imagine a potential customer comes to you, Alexis, and says, "Okay, we blog 2 times a month, but we want to be a top performer. What should the other 9 posts per month be to get us to 11?" Are you all advising people to kind of pour all of this energy into more content specifically for SEO, or are you finding that even if the content output isn't all exclusively focused on SEO, that you're still reaping some of the benefit?
Yeah. So we're big believers in, SEO. We believe that, the dividends are incredible and, the results compound over time. So we almost always will recommend, let's write great content for SEO purposes. But I think that your question really is, are you talking about top of funnel, mid funnel, bottom of funnel, right? And so what we love to do is take a look at, okay, so what type of content are you posting today? Is it mostly top of funnel? Okay, let's think about some mid funnel content, like maybe some product-led SEO, product-led content that we can put in there and just get a good mix so that we can pull people through that funnel, that marketing funnel in your blog or, in your resources section. And I think that, we're big fans of, the topic clusters, the hub and spoke model and all of that. So we're finding that a lot of clients are posting great content, but either they're not taking a close look at SEO or they're posting not such great content, but like they're over optimizing, right? Like there's two big ways you can go. And so whenever we are talking to a client and they say, we're only publishing twice a month, we know that we should be publishing, 5 to 8 times a month. what should that extra content be? I mean, we've got thousands of ideas for you, but first, let's see where you're ranking. Let's see where there's some striking distance, and let's see how we can pull people through that sales funnel.
Yeah, yeah. What do you find are the roadblocks? Like in your opinion and experience, like why doesn't everyone just publish more content? Because it does, like this is excellent data to back it up.
Right.
And it definitely validates a belief that I think most marketers have, which is that if they do more of this good thing that is already working, that it will probably be better. But then obviously many don't. Are there a couple of things that you find prevent people from doing it?
I think that one of the biggest factors we see across a lot of clients is, a lot of companies have a lot of red tape, right? They have too many cooks in the kitchen. They may have a lot of freelancers, but too many people are trying to edit the content, right? And so getting it published is a huge to-do. We recommend, limiting that number of people that need to review. Maybe, rather than reviewing the final piece, maybe they can review the content brief instead, and just figuring out like, where do you actually need people to enter that approval process, or do you even need them in that approval process at all? Another hindrance we see is, we just had one of our clients fire their other freelancers because they loved our content so much. They literally said to us, hey, so I was behind. What did they say? They said, so we're late on this deadline. We didn't edit it in time, literally just because I was not looking forward to editing this content because I was expecting it to suck, because all of our other content typically sucks whenever another writer writes it. So we have to write it ourselves most of the time. And so find a great agency that writes really well, like really interviews you, interviews subject matter experts, and just really knows what they're doing. Because this agency, they were like, this client didn't want to edit it because they were expecting it to suck. And then they read it and they're like, oh my gosh, what a breath of fresh air. This was actually really good. And now I'm looking forward to editing the content that you send us.
Yeah,
and they give us the quickest approvals ever now. So I think that's a big thing is, making sure that the content is solid. You have a great writer, and don't have too many people in the approval process. I'm sure there are others you can think of, Tom, too, but those are two huge roadblocks that we come up against.
Yeah, and I think the mentality that a lot of companies have towards content is very outdated, and they're thinking too small, right? Like content can have a very big business impact. Yet you talk to CEOs, you talk to CMOs, and a lot of them don't understand that, right? Like they think, oh, well, we want to get traffic, let's create some blogs, let's create some white papers and things like that. But what we want to really look at is the business impact, right? And so just to give you a couple of examples, like one company that we started with, they were 160 employees when we started. We started cranking out a lot of content. It was around 15,000 words of content a month for them, in addition to lead magnets. And some of those lead magnets were literally over 90 pages long. We put a lot of effort into content as a growth driver. And they went from 160 employees to 412 in 3 years. And they went all the way to 470 in 4 years of working with them.
Oh, wow.
Another company went from 50 employees to 250 employees in 2 years. Another went from 75 employees to 270 in a few years. And so on and on and on. You see what I'm getting at with this is that you can use content to drive business growth, as opposed to just talking about, oh, how many times are we publishing, as a marketing team, and like how many words should we write and things like that. When you start looking at the business impact, it changes the prism, right? It changes everything. And instead of just writing content, what you're doing is you're creating a content platform that is really a growth platform, right? You have to. Well, we love behavioral intelligence. And so we're always looking at what exactly are they doing inside of the content? What are they looking at? What are they ignoring and skipping, right? What are they clicking on? What are they not clicking on? Where are things placed? And really examining it at that type of depth to understand how this drives growth, rather than just looking at it on a superficial level, which I fear that a lot of companies are still doing.
It's
Yeah,
lead
yeah.
generation. I feel like not enough people are looking at it as demand generation. It is lead generation. Like, this is how you do account-based marketing. This is how you educate your prospects. It's so powerful on so many levels. So you have to think of it that way as well.
Yeah. I think this might be the right time to ask you about audience segmentation, sort of skipping ahead in the report a little bit, but there's a whole section on audience segmentation, and that stood out to me because I don't typically think of audience segmentation and SEO kind of in the same sentence. I think of audience segmentation as something that's more closely aligned with like paid advertising, for example. Um, I guess maybe first, before we talk about some of the data, can you explain uh, when you think of audience segmentation in the context of SEO, what are we talking about?
Yeah, we're talking mainly about industry segmentation. So, for instance, with B2B, oftentimes what you'll find is that the company is targeting either the healthcare sector or financial services or construction or technology or hospitality. And so we were looking at whether the company actually segmented the audience and had content supporting segmented audiences in their website versus those who did not segment by industry.
And so for the
Got
more
it.
tactical people out there, think about longer tail keywords, right? So for instance, Stratabeat has, B2B marketing strategies for SaaS, B2B marketing strategies for tech, B2B marketing strategies for fintech, and then B2B marketing strategies for green tech, like things like that, just longer tail things so that people can read this content and realize, oh, this is going to be very specific and tailored to my exact pain points.
Got it. Okay. I'm just trying to think of like an example, like say your greenhouse, the applicant tracking system,
Yeah.
B2B SaaS, but obviously everyone needs to hire. It's nuanced depending on if you're in hospitality, construction, financial services, et cetera. So you're saying that there would be content created specifically for hiring, for construction companies, hiring for
Yes.
financial services companies, et cetera.
Right. So
Got it.
imagine targeting the keyword like best recruiting practices or recruiting best practices, something like that. Then you can segment that for best recruiting practices in healthcare, right? Recruiting best practices in financial services, recruiting best practices in technology, right? On and on and on. And it's actually easier to succeed in SEO when you do this. So there's less competition. It's longer tail, as Alexis said, right? There is lower search volume. There is. You have to expect that. And so you're not going to see massive traffic increases by taking this strategy. But what we found is you will see a massive increase in the number of Google top 10 rankings that you achieve, as well as in referring domains as well. So on average, those websites in our study who segmented their audience, they saw an increase in Google top 10 keywords of close to 32%.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty significant, right? It was 2.6 times a larger increase than what those websites that were not segmenting the audience experienced. And for those who did segment the audience and saw an increase, the average for those was close to 49% increase year over year. And so just a massive, massive increase. And then if you look at the increase in referring domains, which is all, about backlinks, how many websites are pointing links at you, they saw an increase on average of 29.3%. A growth rate in their referring domains of 29.3% year over year. And so again, that's a pretty significant growth rate. When you're talking about all the different possibilities of what you could be doing, audience segmentation is really effective.
On top of that too, and this is, we don't know the conversion rates in our study, so this is not in the study, but anecdotally, we know too that if you're doing audience segmentation in your content, you're also going to have higher conversion rates.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. Yeah, because if you had told me that the companies who are doing a lot of audience segmentation actually are getting less organic traffic, but they're converting at a much higher rate, I would have been like, okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. But so I find it fascinating that you're getting actually more organic traffic. And like, even though the data is not in this report, as you said, Alexis, you could expect that they would be converting at a better rate too.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what we see with our clients because we recommend this strategy often, right? We're firm believers in the power of audience segmentation. Now we have the data to back it up. previously it was just anecdotal that, oh, well, this has worked for us many times in the past, let's do it again. Now we have definitive data showing that, yeah, actually this does work when you compare it against websites that don't do it. But it's something that we've been seeing for years with our clients. As Alexis said, it also, we see it for ourselves as well.
At the beginning, Alexis, you mentioned using IP detection software to help your customers understand which companies. I don't know exactly how this works. I'm assuming you can track an IP that some software thing somewhere pulls in the logos, and then your customer can understand, okay, like this content is reaching people inside of these companies. Is that kind of more or less how that works?
Yeah. So there are tools where you can see exactly which companies are visiting which pages from which source as well. So they came from, organic search, or they came from PPC, or they came from social. And so you can see how they entered your website, and then you can see which pages they went to on your website. We love using this software because one, it proves that we're attracting the right audiences, right? That we evaluated search intent and we did our job well. On top of that, we love, showing the client, hey, this specific company has a really high intent to buy here pretty soon. Like they were going through all your money pages, your product pages, your contact page, but maybe they didn't submit a form. And most of the time that's the case, is they did not submit a form. But you know that they're interested, they're, shopping. So maybe you should send this to your sales team and tell them, hey, are you interested in X, Y, and Z? And you know exactly which pages they were on, so you know which products they're interested in. So why don't you just pitch those products to them right away? And, they're fairly warm at that point.
Yeah, well, that's
Jimmy.
Fascinating, actually, because we talk about content attribution constantly. Like this thread comes up in Superpath every single week, basically. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about using software like this to track who's on the site and where do they come from and what do they do. Like what a really cool way to figure out, are you reaching the right people or not? So I'm kind of like surprised at how sort of obvious that is, but I guess maybe I didn't really know there was tools that did that. So I would imagine there's a lot of others too.
So Jimmy, think of it this way. 95 to let's say 99% of site visitors for any website, right, are probably not going to fill out a form. They're not going to contact the company, right?
So you don't know who they are.
So you do not know who they are. So it's an incredible opportunity. This is one of the biggest opportunities, honestly, one of the biggest opportunities for marketers is to identify that 95 to 99%. Now, the software is not going to be 100% where it captures everyone, but it's going to capture a majority of the site visitors. And imagine just having that on a daily basis, knowing which specific companies were on your site. And oh, hey, there were 3 different people from this one company, which is our ICP, that were looking at this and that and this and that on our site yesterday at the same time. So clearly they were talking to one another. Clearly, what a great opportunity for us to start engaging with them, right?
Yeah.
And it baffles us that more marketers are not doing this. Like we love doing this. We lean into it. We prioritize it. It is invaluable. And it amazes us that the marketing world doesn't talk about this, doesn't focus on it, and just kind of ignores it and just wants to focus on aggregate data and looks at like GA4 data and Adobe Analytics data instead of, hey, this is what our ICP is doing. How are we going to engage with them?
Yeah. Sometimes if it doesn't fit neatly in a spreadsheet, it's not data, or at least that's sometimes I like what I find. I'm going to, like I said, put a link to the report in the show notes. There's a lot here. We're obviously not going to be able to discuss every single data point, but I would really encourage folks to go check it out because there's a lot of really good stuff in here. I'm curious. I was going to ask you what's the most surprising thing you found, but I think a better question is maybe what's the most important thing you found, because it could be that it's not something new that surprised you, but something evergreen that is as important as ever. I'm just curious, like, what stands out?
So what really stood out as being amazingly effective across the board was things like original research and online tools, these value-added pieces of content. And so I'll just give an example, like original research. Which, is exactly what our study is, right? And we can explain everything that we're doing with the study and all the different benefits that you get from it. It's not just the traffic that you get in your website. There's so many benefits. But if we look at the study and those websites that were offering original research versus those that were not offering original research. There's a big discrepancy, right? So what we were finding was that those that offered original research increased their Google top 10 rankings by 25.1% year over year, which was a 2.3x. It was 2.3x larger growth rate than those who were not offering original research. So pretty massive. And then same thing on the referring domains growth. We saw a 28.5% increase in referring domains year over year for those websites offering the original research. Now, going beyond the study, what we can tell you is there's so many other benefits of original research that go far beyond SEO traffic or backlinks or things like that. So for example, with Stratabeat, we conducted this study of 250 websites. We came out with it, and just you can look at all the different marketing that we are able to do and all the different opportunities for us to engage with our audience because we have this unique proprietary data, right? We are speaking at multiple industry conferences this year, revealing the data, right? At different points during the year. So it'll be different refreshes of the data at different points during the year. Podcast interviews like this one, right? Blogging opportunities, also sales opportunities. When we're in a sales conversation, right?
Show the data,
bringing it up. Yeah, show the data, share the data, and you would be the only ones with that data in the world, right? Yeah. In addition, lead generation. I can't tell you how powerful it's been on lead generation. So just understand that the benefits go so far beyond SEO that we would really encourage everyone listening. If you're not doing original research today, rethink that strategy and consider, even if you start small, that's fine. But there are so many different benefits to it. We would strongly recommend it.
Love it. Yeah, I find that for almost any company I talk to that is having a little bit of uncertainty about content marketing these days, because I do feel there's been a slight loss of confidence in it over the last year or so, primarily around SEO. This data debunks most of that, which I find to be fascinating. But original research is the one thing that most companies aren't doing, which is the most odd they could do. And then that data becomes sort of, as you said, Tom, it's like the atomic unit that can then be repurposed in 100 different ways in a content context, but also, like you said, sales, lead gen, conferences, speaking. I mean, that stuff is invaluable, difficult to measure. I think of it actually kind of like podcasting. It's like these conversations are content in and of themselves, but it's also like my customer research. There's snippets, et cetera. So great stuff. Original research. Do more of that for sure. Cool. Tom and Alexis, thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said, link to the report will be in the show notes. Anywhere else we should point people to learn more about Stratabeat and both of you?
They can certainly come to the main website, stratabeat.com, and we have a wealth of content there as well. Also, I would recommend visiting our LinkedIn page, and you can also connect with myself and Alexis on LinkedIn. We're very active there, and would love to engage in conversations with everyone.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you both. Really appreciate the time. Thank you also for doing the research. Just so much value for the community taking the effort to do it and publish it. So we all appreciate that too. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for having us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.